This is Cirina Catania with OWC Radio, and I am interviewing Storm Smith, who's this dynamic woman that I unfortunately didn't get to meet in person during NAB, but I kept hearing about her from all kinds of people. And since OWC Radio is about tech and creative and finding creative people all over the world, I'm so happy that you could take the time to do this, Storm. And I also want to thank Mandy for signing for us.
Yes, thank you so much for this opportunity. I know I've heard so much about you, and I was so excited, and I'm sorry that we missed each other at NAB, but I knew still that we would get together and interview. So I want to thank to Tim and Mandy David, it's my pleasure.
Well, this is fun. I first of all, let's tell people who you are and where you come from and where you are now.
Okay. I was born and raised in LA. That's the heart of LA, California. Born and raised until I was about 17. And I moved to Washington, D.C. for school. And then I was at 1 year at Gallaudet University, the only university for deaf and hard of hearing in the world. But I wasn't really thinking, I wasn't mature enough to be able to be away from home, 3,000 miles away. So transferred back to CSUN, California. And then I grew so much from them. And then at the same time, I was able to get involved in the deaf culture and get exposure to the deaf language and the visual language and everything. So then I knew Gallaudet was the best place to be. So I transferred back and did my last year and graduated in psychology. And I ended up staying at the East Coast for the last 12 years now. I've been there, graduated. And I started my major in communication, pro marketing for Gallaudet University, focusing on the university brand, telling their story. My last year before I got recruited for BBDO, I focused on the president who she's selected to be the first president of Gallaudet's history. So we did her brand and tell her story and got the exposure out there. And then 1 year, BBDO recognized my work, and prior to that, my name had gotten around, and I didn't even know that, and they recruited me, and I was recruited in 2017, and my life changed because I never really had that dream, or the experience was just never in my radar to be recruited by them. So, oh my God, you're serious? I'll never forget the moment. My former boss recruited for an interview. It was not really an interview, but it was a short little hey, I want you to come and meet with me in New York. And I was like, oh, okay, sure. Let's meet. It was in January. So I'm from LA. So I'm warm environment weather. New York is cold and rainy, so I didn't do well in the cold, so I'm here, my parents' home. So when I met him at BBDO's office, I was shocked, and I was just in awe of the atmosphere, the people, the creative people, and the advertising. I felt like I was in a movie scene. I just kind of looked around and said, "Is this real?" So my boss's name is JD Miles, who at that time was the VP of inclusion and director of creativity engineering. So he's the champ. So he's the best. So he hired me to come into his office. So we talked, and he said, Storm, I want to let you know, I heard a lot about you. I love your work, your storytelling, and we want that here. And I was like, okay. Understand before that, I had no idea what this meeting was about. So imagine my experience in this moment, and so he's explaining everything, what BBDO does, and I had no idea what they were prior to that day. So I was like, oh, okay. So it's big. You have big clients, Pepsi. You have all these big names, and I was like, wow. And then he said, okay, the fact that you're a storyteller, we want you here. Offer the position of art director. And I understand at that time, there was no interpreter. So I was lip reading, and I was just trying to read his lips, and I could talk a little bit. But imagine the moment he offered that position, I was like, are you I voiced it out, literally. And he laughed. Like, he gave me the, yeah, of course. Like, it was no brainer for him. And I'm sitting there like, what? Understand, you have to, in the back of my mind, I often share the story, the last year, for me to answer that way, because it's hard to get in this industry, and to be recruited. And then I'm a woman of color and I'm deaf, and I don't really have the formal education in advertising, you know. So I'm in psychology, but one thing I do know is I've always had a skill of art, drawing, and visual storytelling. And so, I never knew that that would be my career. So he made one thing clear during our meeting. He said, just to let you know, it's not because you're Black, it's not because you're deaf, it's not because you're a woman. It's the fact that you have raw talent, and we want that here. And I was like, let's sign it. Let's sign up. Let's do it. so, so that just ultimately validated all the work that I had been doing prior to that for the deaf and hard of hearing community with people with disabilities. And I knew that I could do so much more of that on that platform. And BBDO is huge. It's the best in the world. And, to take that advantage, I knew I had a lot to learn. I knew that I was not going to walk in and be arrogant just because I had the position. I wanted to walk in, I wanted to learn, and let me but understand, meet me halfway. I'm not going to be able to fit in all my own, but I learned later that, the hearing people not only met me, so let's work together, and so, a month and 2 years now, and it's just been, my life is constantly changing, and I'm growing so much. I've done a lot of creative works, especially one, International Women's Day, July 18th. It's supposed to be the social media short for BBDO, but with the idea of developing and expanding and becoming a PSA called Pastime to Redefine. If you look it up on, the definition, the women, it's really negative content. They're prostitutes, mistresses, lovers, sweetheart. And I'm like, excuse me. I'll never forget. I looked at that and I went, hell no. No, no, no. And I'm typing it. So trying to imagine my teams, submitting that to our, our chief creative officer, Greg. And so we submitted that, and he picked mine. And then we just elaborated, and, and I want to say we worked on it for about 2 weeks, 3 weeks. We just did that. And then because of that day, it launched for the International Day, and then Google, removed the negative lines. So because we did that, and that PSA campaign was generated all over worldwide, and it's just to Google. So I realized my role as an art director and a storyteller on a big scale, and the influence, that was just one of my pride work. So, but at the same time, I still have so much to learn. And today it's just life-changing experience to be involved at BBDO. Just the people there are so supportive, they're understanding, but they also challenge me often. I'm like, oh, I get overwhelmed sometimes, I break down, but I feel like I'm imposter syndrome sometimes, but do I really belong in this life? But no, I do. And I got to own it. So I did, and I still do.
And I think you own it.
Yes, now I do. But for my first year, it was very overwhelming. But now, of course, I own it. Yeah.
So tell people who don't know, Storm, what an art director does, because that is an incredibly difficult job. It takes the ability to work not just internally with the team, but also with clients too, right? I'm assuming you have a lot of interaction with the clients as well. In a company like BBDO, there's probably a big team, or does the account executive do most of the interactive with the clients?
Right. Okay. Because often when I do presentations about my role as art director, they're all like, what exactly is that? And I'm like, oh, okay. So I can explain that. An art director, based on my understanding, my experience, what I observed all over the world is basically, you develop and you deliver the vision concept of a story, from different platforms, film, short film, TV, to interactive experience, to pop arts, pop culture experience, just all over. There's so many. But the goal is you tell a story related to the client's brand and their product. You come up with the look, the color, the whole visual concept. And also often, with the copywriter, I have to work with them or to develop the content, you know, the script, the ideas, the wording, and we kind of put it all together about, the life art director. It varies, the scale, which that is an advantage that I feel that art directors, you get to tell the story anyway. You get to vision it, you get to see it, the words and inspire. And the key thing is to influence. So there's nothing better than that. And you also you're able to deliver my role because as a visual learner, I'm a deaf person and I tend to see things. And so when I sign, often when I have a good interpreter, top-notch interpreter who explains the story concept, they can understand it. But then how can I sign it? So I don't often get to talk one-on-one. If it's a group meeting or important people, I will sign, and have the interpreter speak for me. But, it's a visual delivery, to the end. So an art director is just communication, visual ideas. So that's my understanding.
So talk to us for a minute about some of the recent campaigns you have worked on.
Exactly the campaign, but it's like collaboration project with Apple. It's called Everyone Can Code. And I remember the woman named Janet Barrel, who's marketing and community manager for accessibility. So she wanted someone to direct and engineer, and explain in ASL what is code. And, by using Swift, the playground app for that, you have to provide authenticity and direct and everything. So they contacted and we collaborated and basically for education, but how to influence the world who are deaf, hard of hearing, just have hearing loss, and they want to learn how to code, especially the youth. I was fine, okay. And I was like, they contacted me. I'm thinking, oh boy, I'm gonna work with Apple project. Wow. So I flew out, and it was 2 days, and I led the meeting, and the whole idea, concept, the color, the look, and I met with 2 deaf engineers from Lyft, and so we hit the ground running, and it was amazing. We shot, and I think altogether we produced about 7 videos. I have more, but just the key leverage project to start out with. So it launched it last January, and they got it out there for accessibility for the Apple part, and then the deaf school in the UK are interested in doing how to code now. So the point is, social influence can change, and let them know that they can do. Of course, they can do whatever they want, but we have the resources and the product and the brand that fits you in accessibility, full with ASL, transcripts, captions, so it's just accessibility is a human right. So, when I got to work with them in Apple for that education part, accessibility, that was just wow. It was a rare experience that you could ever have.
Isn't it wonderful to be doing what you have been given as a gift? Right. This is your gift. You're doing what you're supposed to do. It's amazing.
Yes, yes. It's like it's a natural for me, but at the same time, the bottom line is it comes from the heart. It's my heart, and I want to be an advocate. I'm not just here to, oh, let me help you. No, 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 I want, this is 2019, almost 2020, and the technology and the advancement, the storytelling is literally shifting, our climate where, we can influence, we can make a lot of movements, the at the same time, the Black Life Cherishment, just so many, there's so excuses now. So I want to be able to write on that platform. Yes, it's a no-brainer. My skill and my heart combined. So I took advantage of that and ran with it and just be an influence.
Do you remember the very first film that you made? The first video you made? Can you tell us about that?
Yes. The first short film is called Unveiled. And that's okay. So, remember before, I was a school counselor, in the school system, psychology. So long story very short, that fall I was at grad school, for school counseling. And so I went in and met my mentor, and I loved my mentor. She was amazing. She was in the industry for a long time. She's deaf, and I, she'd been in the deaf community and hearing community, so she knew BBDO too. So she hung out with those advertising agencies in her time. So she was in the she was chair of the department for communication studies. Plus, she was part of a deaf film festival organization at Gallaudet University. But anyway, my point is, we met and we said hi, and the first thing she said was, well, really two things. She said, good morning. Second of all, she said, make your film. And I was like, what? That was random. I was thinking, I have this book. I'm going to talk about this, and then grad level, we're going to talk about this. And she saw my experiment work prior, the fun stuff that I made, and you need to do something about it. So I'm like, uh-huh. So I didn't take it seriously at the time. And she kept emphasizing, please make your film. And I was like, but what, if I do, what's the deadline? She goes, you have a week.
A
And it was
week.
already getting there, the deadline. And I know, right? So I'm like, 1 week? I don't know. What if I gotta say? I don't know. That's not possible. She looked at me and she dead serious, like with a smile, of course. And she said, please, just get it out there. Just do it. I'm like, okay. So we gave a hug and then we left. So I laughed on my way to the dorm. I'm like, ha ha, that's not possible. It's not possible. So then before I knew it, that evening I was talking with my friends about it. They're like, oh, why not? Why not? And I'm like, are you kidding me? 1 week? Because you're a filmmaker. You know how. You know how much work it takes to produce? And I said, my friends were so supportive and they're creative. And so I ended up doing a short film, sacrificing my schedule and time, and just giving everything and getting it done. And I did the film in a week, and friends supported me. And it was like, 7 or 8 minutes long, about psych psychodrama, where the students are being bullied, and they're alone, and you can see someone they're not supposed to be seen, but it's about, you know, being a bully and how it turns around and how it keeps going around, and and so it's a story. It says, the golden rule, treat, help me out, maybe treat,
Others.
how you want to be treated, the golden rule.
Treat
So
others the way
that
you
was
would
the
like to
point
be
about
treated.
that. So I producing to include the caption, the sound, the editing, everything, the color change. And 1 month later, I got accepted in the film festival for the top 5 out of 17 films. And I'm like, what? So I realized that that week when I was producing, I found my fire. I found my passion. And it's been sitting for years. And I was like, oh, I need to do something about this. And then another month later, I resigned from master program and then just focused on learning and doing the major in the PR marketing and communication, and then for the rest is history. It just says, if you have it, you got to do it. The uncertain part, the unforeseen part, I know it's scary, but if you have it, go for it all the way. And because if you don't, my mentor that morning, if it wasn't her, I wouldn't be here.
I think it's amazing when someone like your mentor finds a talented person and they say one or two sentences, and those one or two sentences change your whole life. People like that can change others' lives. And that's what you're doing, Storm. You're doing that for so many people, because you are now in a position where you have a voice worldwide with what you do. And I think you were put there by a much higher power, if you don't mind me saying that. And you're there to do a great job,
Thank you. Thank you. It's funny you mentioned that because just this morning, I happened to mention to my mom, said, my mom, that when I was 8, a girl named Ava, she's deaf. She was from Fremont, St. Augustine, in California. And mom said, what? So I showed her the 2 clips, filmed her signing and saying, I met my deaf hero, Storm Smith.
Oh.
And the second videotape said she interviewed me. The teacher, I understand she had all the students pick your deaf hero, that you look up to. And for whatever reason, my name popped up. And so Ava picked me and then decided to have the interview. So it worked out. And so I made time and we, I could do it. It was a month. So we had plenty of time to do video. We did a video phone interview. So we were talking. I was talking to Ava. Oh, she's so gorgeous. She's beautiful, brown little girl. She had curly hair. Hi, and where are you from? And where'd you grow up? And so those kind of questions she asked me. So then I explained to her about my experience from Gallaudet University to BBDO, and her jaw dropped. She's like, oh, really? And at that moment, it was priceless because we hadn't even met formally in person, just on video phone. But for her, it was like, for someone like her to have someone like her to look up to, and she's young and she, a woman of color and deaf and does film. I mean, it was just, you have so many amazing things you can do, doctor, PhD, CEO, you can do whatever. But for filmmakers, being deaf and in this industry, the prominent field, we just can't. It's very rare for us. So for her to see this witness, it reminded me of, that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. So my mom just let me show you, let me show your dad. And so she showed my dad. And so it's so important. It's amazing. So, I wanted to mention that because the work I'm doing all this time till now, and what I will do, is not just for the sake of doing it. It's not the sake of the company's name. It's not for the sake of the power, but it's the sake of showing it's possible. It doesn't matter what you can. And it's also showing it doesn't matter where you're from, your background, what kind of education you have, you still can make it. You know what I mean? So that's it. Yeah.
That's awesome. Let's talk tech for a minute, if you don't mind. You started out with your videos, I believe, on iMovie. Is that right? On an iPad with your iMovie, and then you switched to Final Cut. Can you talk about your workflow and how you make these videos and what you use, what solutions you use?
Okay. Very, very, very early memories. I remember I started window maker back in the oh 2007, something like that. It was real short because at that time I was doing photography, and so I mixed the photography into the video clips. So I enjoyed that. I thought that was cool in college, and then in the future I transferred to iMovie, and at that time produced the short film, and so I just fell in love. So imagine I didn't do anything fancy. I just had a laptop. When I got the money from financial aid, I returned and bought a Mac, and that was my very first Mac laptop. I was so excited, had iMovie, and then TVI, TUI, T2I. I used the Canon, so it just the laptop and that, and nothing fancy, but I was shooting and transferred all the footage, and then I edited and then saved it on the hard drive or on my desktop, and then I exported it, and that was my work. So I developed and with iMovie, and then at that time it was kind of called Final Cut Pro 7, and I was like, oh, it was expensive at that time. So my original were at Gallaudet, no, Adobe Plus Final Cut Pro 7. And so I'm like, no, 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 I'm sticking with iMovie. I'm sticking with iMovie. So my boss was like, okay, fine. He supported that, but I still edited in that, but we're still able to deliver the work. So fortunately, and I just kept going. And then finally I was ready to do something more advanced. So Final Cut Pro 10 just launched, and I was so excited. When I continued my creative work, from the video to short film to, Gallaudet for marketing, I just was doing all that in Final Cut Pro 10 at the time. And so my workflow has always basically been shoot and save. And I learned how to do organization, and they always kept saying, oh, you got to make sure it's organized. Okay, okay, okay. So I that stuck with me, so I said sure. So I just organized everything, and then I transferred, I edited over, and I finished. I get the feedback, and then and it's easy to get the feedback, from Frameo. Back then there wasn't anything, but always, now you can get it and assign to each other and get the feedback, and get we say, okay, edit this, and then we're done, and export it. And then the process into the last few years before BBDO, I transferred to Adobe, because internal purposes, they have Illustrator and all this and all the different things that we had to include into one. So I went to Adobe and fell in love with that. And so my foundation is iMovie and Final Cut Pro, and I just kind of go back and forth, and then my workflow has always been pretty much the same, just transfer, edit, color correction, audio mix a little bit, I can hear a little bit, but not deep, and captioning. Of course, Final Cut Pro 10 has the, for captioning. So now I'm using the project collaboration, in Frameo and Wimster. And so it's just, my knowledge of post production, and just to tell the story. And the young groups, can learn how to edit. They can edit anything, but you can tell your story. That's two different things. So, but what do you mean? I said timing. You edit it, move it around. What is the purpose of the same frame? You pick the one that tells and has an impact. Oh, okay. So the group of deaf film camp in New York, we do that. And so the same process. One thing I'm constantly learning and is a challenge is the camera flow, like the Canon, and then I think the experience with Sony. So just have to make sure it fits, in edit. You can't just take it and drop it and then it's going to work. So you have to make sure it fits and it's all set up, So I don't have to explain that, but the sequence, making sure everything's there and make sure it's locked, and then It's a piece of cake. So,
Uh-huh. So you
you know,
also shoot on an iPhone once in a while, right?
yeah, I use uh, not iMovie, but iPhone. I use Filmic
Filmic Pro?
Filmic Pro, and I love that. Love, love, love Filmic Pro. The quality, it's gorgeous on the phone. If it's short, I can use the 4K and kind of do that, and the Cosmo, make that and shoot around, and it's just very easy. So I use my phone. It's very quick. It's different. So I love to use that, and it. I love my cameras. Don't get me wrong, but a little bit about C2 or C200, C300. I think it's a
The
little bit
C300?
on the
Yeah.
Canon, but it's heavy, and you
Yeah.
have to hold it and carry it around, and you have to make sure it's charged, and you have to make sure you have the right tripod, and you have to have heavy duty tripods. I'm like, oh my gosh. So, but I do have, I have my iPhone. It's easy, simple. I love it. Yep, yep. See, yeah. So it does 4K quality, and of course, you could do, buy lenses. I haven't gotten that yet, but it's amazing.
Yeah, I have a moment lens on here that I love.
Oh, I didn't even see that. Yes, yes, that.
Yeah.
I don't
Tho
own that yet.
those are great. Those are actually great. You get really good, I mean, this iPhone works really well anyway, but the moment lens is great. You must be really excited when you think about AI and what it's doing for transcripts, and then the possibility of software like maybe Lumberjack Builder that can actually do text-based editing for your interviews. I'm dying to show that to you. We have to talk offline, and we'll talk about that. But I think there's so many new solutions in the tech world that are going to help you a lot, I think, right?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. That's what I was just saying earlier, just everyone can come up with advanced solutions. We just need to take advantage. And of course, whatever's best that fits. For example, for here, for captioning, it's available with Final Cut, Lumberjack, and, Final Cut Pro 10 is available. So, that's what, I gave the presentation in AB about, captioning is accessibility. It's the key. If you want to maximize your audience view and the revenue, put captions there. So that they really can understand, and everyone can code. The video, that's already produced. It shows the clip. Everybody can. They were watching that, and there was two deaf who came. They're sitting and they're watching that in ASL, and I had no captions there. My interpreter wasn't voicing or anything, so yeah, they had them watch it, and they all said, "Do you understand?" They're like, "No." So I said, "Okay, I'll teach you about, yes and no at the beginning." I taught them that, and they were like, "No, no." Okay, that's how you feel disconnected when you don't have access to that. And they were like, "Oh." I'm like, "Uh-huh." You see the deaf people? Yes, I can understand them. And they were, that was the comfort level there. So imagine our everyday life. You flipped. You have access, we don't. The second one with the caption, but on purpose, I had the captions messed up. So like I had them watch it, and they're like, "Huh? Did you understand that?" They're like, it was too fast, and then it was disappearing, and then the color changed. And was that comfortable for you? No. Okay. So then that's why you can't just place captions as a default. You can't, because the caption, you just put it there. No, you have to make sure the alignment's right. It's in the where they are, in the color, the font, the size, the background. So I explained all of that, and they're like, "Oh." So then the third time, it was my favorite part. So the third time they watched it with the captions, with the audio, with everything, and they felt like, "Oh, ah." And they got it. Yeah, right. They felt that way. So I wanted to give them the full accessibility comfort for them for your business. Not just for personal experience, but for business all over worldwide. And they finally get it. And I'm like, yes, thank you. That's my point for advancement in technology, like Lumberjack and many of the others. It's there. We just have to work together. Not everyone really understands, and that's okay. It's not going to bite.
They
It's
don't.
all right.
No, they don't. I understand that in the new version of Final Cut, you can convert, and I don't know how to do this, but I need to find out. You can convert a closed caption to an open caption so that you can change the fonts and the colors and all of that. Is that correct?
Yes, you have two different caption files. You have the CEA 608, and then you have the ITT. The ITT is more flexible. You can change and manipulate the font and the size, and because ITT is more fit with Apple, the accessibility features, where when you click, you can change on Apple TV, you can do it on the phone, you can do it on the laptop, you can make it bigger because of ITT. But CEA 608, it's more standard for television. It can fit, digital television, but it's limited characters, limited features. It's more standard, but you have both options.
So that's another reason why I think Final Cut really works well for people. I use Final Cut every day, and I'm not even an editor. I actually even use Final Cut with Builder to edit written articles that I'm writing for magazines because I can edit the content so easy. I can drag and drop the content and write the story. It's amazing. We're in a new world. Isn't it great?
Yes, yes, yes. It's
So,
perfect. It makes me happy to actually see people who are really motivated and ready and committed, whether they already know or not, but they're committed. And now let's move forward. The more accessibility, you make everyone happy.
so
And it's like you just said, you're not an editor, but you find ways to make your work accessible for your audience. And I do the same thing for myself. And, I also encourage BBDO to do the same thing. They knew, they were mindful of accessibility, but I wanted them to have more support. And so they're doing that.
So I've been watching some of your videos. I saw At First Sight. I thought that was awesome with the young girl on the. If it's okay, I'm gonna put a link to this in the written article so people can see it.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Feel
And
free
then,
to use
and
any
then,
of my films that you love the most. Feel free, put it out there.
which other one I loved was the I don't know how it's Krissa and Samaya challenge with the soccer.
Yes, that's everyone's favorite. Yes, I have a story behind those two. The one, Love at First Sight. Um, I understand that was my first year at the Deaf Film Camp, where I was a lead teacher for post production for the youth camp, ages 13 to 16. Yeah, it's deaf and hard of hearing students that go. So we had a break. The staff had a break. So we were like, oh, let's do something creative. And so I came up with this story. One of my coworkers and I, no conversation. We can't force them to, watch body language, facial expressions, the color, the whole thing. There was no conversation, the better. So I came up with that. The woman's name was Laura. I'm sorry. Lauren Realoff. So you know, she's an actor on Walking Dead, and so she's nominated for the Broadway show Children of the Lesser God. So it's perfect timing, you know. So we were doing that, and so it was so good. And then the other actor, Daniel, he's amazing as well. So he's on Broadway show too. So the other one, her husband, Douglas, um, he kind of joined in too. And so now the four of us are launching all this with, separate. Able to like 8 or 9 at the time. So it doesn't matter the skill. So
It's amazing. It was really good. It was really well edited too. I enjoyed watching it.
thank you.
So what is next for you? I think you're giving a keynote speech in Phoenix for the DWU, or have you already done that? What's next up?
Well, a few. I have a few. In 3 weeks, I'm going to Harvard University May 6th to give a presentation. Then June in Chicago for the Deaf Women of Color Conference. And then another in July, Deaf Women United in Arizona. So I, frequent um, presenter. However, I'm so, so, so excited because they just let me know about BBDO approved that I will relocate and move to LA.
Oh
Yes,
my
so I'm so
gosh.
excited. So I get to be near my family. And BBDO has an office. They just put one up 2 or 3 years ago in LA. But they have a heart of entertainment in the industry there. So it work with advertising. So I'll be moving there soon. So I'll have a lot of, things to keep up with, but also part of senior fellowship program of pop culture. It's a nonprofit organization that gives a lot of money grants from big foundations, including so what that's for is they if you're developing a project and that can influence the world, they do that and they give you money to help you advance. And so mine is captioning. So I don't want to reveal too much right now, but it's a 1 year program, and they awarded me $40,000. So I'm so excited. So hopefully you'll go partner with a key player. Thank you, thank you. So, one of the key players of the company, they already have their mindset on, some people. So, um, plus moving to LA and presenting. So, yeah, there's a lot more to come. So,
You need a little more energy.
yes, with self-care in between.
So, I could talk to you all day, but I know you both have a life, and so I want to be respectful. Where do people go on the internet to find out more about you? I believe it's officialstormsmith.com. Is that where you want them to go?
Yes, officialstormsmith.com. And that's the website. Everything's there. My work, my bio, my interview, the press interview stuff, everything's all there. So that's the best way. And then if you want to know a little bit about my everyday, almost everyday Instagram, so those are the two best ways. Professional, reach out. LinkedIn is good.
Well, that's awesome. It's so nice to meet you in person finally. I'm so happy.
Yes. Thank you so much for this interview opportunity. I am so excited. I'm honored. Truly, truly honored. Thank you.
So this is Cirina Catania with OWC Radio. I'm about to sign off, and I'm saying thank you so much to Storm Smith for spending time with us today, and for Mandy for signing. And you know what I always say to you guys listening in, get up off your chair and do something wonderful today. Have a great day.